with Bert Barron on the new Talk Radio 1450 WCTC.
7:37. Welcome back to Jersey Central here on WCTC. Our contest is coming up sometime between now and 8 o'clock. Someone will win my final pair of tickets to see the brand new show at Paper Mill Playhouse. It's called Halftime. This is a great show, great musical show. Your chance to win my last pair of tickets, as I mentioned, is coming up very soon. Our phone number, 732-545-9282 or 888-545-9282. Courts all across Jersey have become inundated with a lot of things going on with actions to evict tenants from apartments. And tenants in our cities struggling to make ends meet like a lot of us are. For example, in the city of Newark alone, tenant evictions affect 30,000 residents every year. And, of course, it creates issues with families, destabilizes families, makes for some tough neighborhoods as well. And it targets the most vulnerable and compounding the crisis in homelessness. It's becoming a big issue, not only in Newark, but really in cities all across our state. My guest on the Miller Lite Jersey Central Newsmaker Hotline is Seton Hall Law Professor Paula Franzese. And she says that, you know what, having a place to call home is a basic human right, and she's kind of making some noise about what's going on here with these tenant evictions. Paula, good morning. Talk about what's going on. Why are so many evictions happening in our cities across our state? What's going on here with throwing all these people out of their homes?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. We've really reached a tipping point crisis moment. Last year, there were 160,000 eviction actions in our home state alone, and in a state where many have so much more than many have so little. The gap in wealth and the gap in housing opportunity is wide, and we need to do more to narrow that gap. We've got so many tenants living hand to mouth, often in substandard housing within inner cities like Newark, for example, and those tenants find that the decks are stacked against them for at least three reasons. First, they live oftentimes in dilapidated, decrepit, substandard rental units. I'm not speaking of small problems, but very significant problems, such as the absence of heat in the winter, bed bug infestation, rodent infestation, rat infestation, pernicious mold problems in a bathroom. One of the tenants whose cases I've studied, Yanira Cortez, her young son finally had an opportunity to bathe in the family apartment, a quite substandard apartment, because thankfully the water finally came in. The problem, once it did, unbeknownst to Yanira, the temperatures started fluctuating wildly, so that this baby ended up suffering second-degree burns from his waist down as a consequence of the scalding water that began to pour in through the faucet. These are defects that offend all of us and break our hearts. They're anathema to the cause of human dignity. All of us should have a safe, sustainable place to call home. But the problem is, in addition to tenants living in substandard housing, that second, those units are often subsidized. They're affordable units, and as stocks of affordable housing continue to dwindle throughout the United States and certainly in New Jersey, tenants who are working poor, tenants who are working for a minimum wage, tenants who are parents, tenants living hand to mouth, find themselves in a very precarious position, because if they complain about the conditions, they're evicted. And landlords have the upper hand because wait lists for these affordable units are often 3 to 5 years long. So a tenant who does complain and who is evicted because, for example, she withheld the rent in order to get her own plumber when the landlord failed to, or her own exterminator in the face of the landlord's inaction, and therefore is short on this month's rent, is going to be promptly and summarily dispossessed. And unless she can remit to the court the amounts the landlord's claim due, she's out of luck and will never have an opportunity to have her day in court to explain to a judge why it is that she withheld the rent, or why it is that the premises are so grossly substandard. As a third matter, tenants are not represented by lawyers. Lawyers are expensive, and the overwhelming preponderance of tenants named in housing actions are without counsel. The overwhelming preponderance of landlords do have lawyers. And then finally, the straw that breaks the camel's back, a tenant who's named in an eviction action shows up on a so-called blacklist. These sorts of registries are maintained by private reporting services, and future landlords, in exchange for a fee, can receive a report about a prospective tenant. If a tenant's name appears on one of those dreaded registries, that's it. She's finished. She is stigmatized. It's the equivalent of a human stain, and she is out of luck. She will not find another apartment once she has suffered an eviction action, or even having been named in an eviction action, no matter that she may have won in the proceeding. Just being named is enough. Once one's name shows up on one of those awful lists, one will be denied future housing. So tenants are left voiceless, afraid, powerless. If they complain, they may soon find themselves out on the street. There's something horribly wrong with that sort of a system, and the sort of a system where for some of us, too many of us, that safe place to call home, that reliable, sustainable roof over one's head is simply inaccessible. We all deserve better. Housing is a human right.
I can't believe that in 2018, New Jersey, Paula, we actually have this sort of stuff going on. I get so disgusted when I see on the news, and it's like you see these conditions that people are living in. You know, landlords aren't making repairs. Landlords aren't living up to their end of the deal. People are doing the best to pay their rent. You mentioned about a poor baby that was scalded and is probably, who knows, scarred for life, and who knows if the legal recourse that the parents even have there is unbelievable. You know, I see this sort of stuff, and it just absolutely drives me crazy that we even have this happening now. I had family, Paula, that lived in Hoboken, and they were living in Hoboken since the late 50s, early 60s, long before it became sort of a hipster town where sky-high rents and all this other stuff was going on. They lived in an apartment building where they probably paid the same price for decades and decades and decades. In the back of my mind, I thought, you know what? I bet you the people that run this place would love nothing more than to have my aunt and uncle either die or get out of there, because now they can go ahead and jack up that price and be able to get the money that they want to from some millennial or something that wants to live in Hoboken. When you see the unfair playing surface between tenants and landlords, it drives me absolutely crazy. So I'm glad that we're talking about this today and we're making some noise about this. Someone in Trenton, someone that you had worked with prior, Senator Dick Cody, he's got some legislation going through. What are these bills that Senator Cody is working on to help protect these tenants here?
Senator Cody is advancing two bills. The first is S-805, and the second is S-806. S-805 would eliminate the so-called rent posting requirement for tenants who are asserting as a defense to an eviction action that they withheld rent because their apartments are not habitable. As a matter of law, aggrieved tenants have the right to withhold rent when the premises are so substandard as to have betrayed basic standards of decent dwelling, basic standards of habitability. We're thinking here about problems like the absence of heat in the winter, chronic infestation, mold, the absence of running water. Tenants are permitted to withhold rent in order to compel landlord compliance with basic safety and habitability standards, and also to use any monies withheld in order to abate the problem and make the repairs themselves. The problem is that a tenant who does that will be summarily served with an eviction action. Once that tenant gets to court, again, unrepresented by counsel, she must remit the entire amount that the landlord claims to be due, no matter that that is most likely not the actual amount that's due in view of the premises defects. And she won't even get a hearing on her claim as to the condition of the premises unless and until she can put that money up front. In no other setting do we oblige tenants, in other words, debtors, to have to do that before having an opportunity for due process and to be heard. So Senator Cody with Senator Rice in 805 would eliminate the rent posting requirement pending a hearing where a judge and a housing inspector can make a determination as to the merits of the tenant's claim.
Good. It's common sense legislation right there, Paula. That's what that is.
Absolutely.
Long overdue. And I'm glad that Senator Booker is involved in this, too. He knows a thing or two about the city of Newark, obviously, Paula. I'm glad that he's got some national legislation that's out there about the screening practices and the reporting. But you know what? The fact that a tenant is blacklisted by, I'm sure the landlords have to be in some sort of collusion where, you know, it's names on a registry and it's like, oh, don't rent to that person. They complain a lot. They don't pay their rent. Don't give them one of your places there. Next thing you know, you're contributing to the homelessness problem in our state by not letting somebody have a place to live. This is outrageous, Paula. Where can someone go to get some more information on this?
Yeah, thank you. There are two ways. Certainly, the bills are available in their draft form on the legislative website. I would suggest that to learn more, any one of us can take a look at some of the recent writings on point. I've certainly written a series of columns and contributing columns on NJ.com. In addition, it would be so helpful as people learn more and decide that, you know what, we can do better, to implore their elected representatives within our state, within the Senate, to support 805 and then 806. 806 would eliminate the practice of blacklisting.
Good. It's about time. Professor Paula Franzese, thank you for your time today. Have a good Memorial Day holiday weekend. I'm going to be thinking about I got a couple days off, but you know what? This is going to weigh heavily on my mind for the next couple days, which is fine.
You're a good person.
Because it's so wrong. I don't like when people are wronged. It bothers me. So we're going to make some noise about this, Professor.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you for your time. Enjoy the holiday weekend, all right?
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Can you believe this is going